come back and raise that issue. As you'll recall, we dealt with the gentleman that passed away. He said, no, it's closed now. So that's the idea. But, we can always say within a reasonable time, that's a reasonable thing to say, or within 4 months, but it seems 3 months is fine. But nothing stops us from saying within 4 months, within the reason. But putting that thing down is something that we have been doing for a very long time. 5 to 6, that's straightforward, right? 5 to 7. Yeah, we're dealing with a broader issue. So again, people don't keep coming back and plugging the same thing. Then on expenditure issues, 531, 532, I don't see any hands coming up, right? So the committee secretary, 533, 534, we're on 54, debt, deficit and borrowing, 541. Mr. Vessel, Buta, yeah?
Yeah, sorry, Chair, 534.
Yeah.
Could we perhaps add at the end that we recommend that provisions are included in the public procurement bill to prioritize local procurement?
That is there in the bill, right? We should be careful about linking it. I have to raise this because I've done some homework between Friday and now. You see, the cars issue is very complex. We did some work. And if I recall correctly, this matter I've checked falls under trade and industry, Walter. I think you're probably in that committee anyway. And we should add further with the Minister of Finance, Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, and the Presidency. And I think we have to be very careful. Let me give you an example, right, that was drawn to my attention. So somebody said to me, okay, you own a Toyota, right? So what? How do you know your Toyota is even assembled here? So I pointed out it's a Corolla. And he said, yes, Corolla is assembled here, but other parts of Toyota are not. And it's explained to me, which I know, of course, but it hit me quite hard, that you can't just say to members, and you see there's a big distinction here. I think we must add the civil service. I think I've got it there. I must check whether it's been done. But the problem is that in executive, what happens when you buy the car, unless you choose otherwise, it's not your car. So say you get removed. Then the next minister or deputy minister takes over that car. When it comes to members of parliament, each member of parliament chooses his or her own car or their car, and then they keep it if they lose their seat or whatever, right? But that doesn't mean we shouldn't encourage. Now, on the public procurement thing, once you put it into the bill about cars, they won't agree to it. In any case, legally, you can't do that. But on local procurement, as far as I know, it's there. I mean, I think what you could do is write, or maybe the secretary could write to Treasury and ask them to do that. When the public hearings occur, you can raise that. I think that is part of the whole thing. But you're right, we're agreeing with you. It's just that it's not something you can insert here easily. I see the co-chair's hands up, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with you that the sentence should include the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, because that is his competence. But I say we are restricting our recommendations to executive members. Executive, as far as I know, I think deputy ministers and ministers combined, are they not around 70? So we make a recommendation on buying 70 cars. Well, why don't we talk about government fleet, which is much bigger and will make an impact? Because I see here, I was saying the president is to encourage members of the executive. And it's a small number. It won't make any big impact in terms of what we want to achieve. But if you look at the government fleet, it's a big volume, and it will achieve what we are intending. So unless I have to be given a background to what is being recommended, other than what I'm raising now. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I know you're right. What we could do is just expand that sentence. We got public representatives generally, and others who serve in the public service should also be encouraged to do so. Then we could add where there are government fleets, these two should be encouraged to do so. Something like that, Chairperson, it covers it. Okay, then we move down to 5.4. Is that okay, Comrade Chair? Are you fine with that? Hello?
Yeah, yes.
Fine with that. Yeah, we just add a sentence there, the team as suggested. Then we got 5.4 and 5.41, anything? 5.42, 5.43, 5.44, 5.45, 5.46. Then we go to 5.5, 5.51, 5.52.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, sorry, who's it? Go to her again.
Yes, Chairperson. On 546,
yeah.
As we've done with 5.3.4, where we say that we will raise this issue with the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry, can't we add on 5.4.6 that we will raise the issue with the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises for a meeting to get a what was the word I wrote here? My handwriting is very bad. An update on all state-owned entities, as the issue was raised during the stakeholders' engagement, that we don't have a clear indication of all entities. And I would, because we observe with great concern, I would recommend that we just add something concrete, that we do something to raise the issue with another portfolio committee.
Okay. Any responses to that? Willie and then the co-chair.
Chairperson, I want to go back to 5.4.5.
No, let's hang on this point. Let's finish with this point quickly. Comrade Joe, are you coming on the same point about engaging with the Public Enterprises Committee? Co-chair?
I think that's what we have agreed upon even before. It's not for the first time that we raised that the matter that we want to have a core meeting with our colleagues in trade and industry. But I wanted to come on 544. I want to speak about Ukraine and Russia.
Okay. Can you go there? All right, so we're agreeing on the earlier issues, right? Okay. Go for it, Chairperson.
Yeah, yes, Chairperson. On 544, I think at some stage our research team will have to give us something well researched to look as to the impact that what is going on in Ukraine, whatever you call it, whether it's a war, invasion, or a denazification, whatever term, the impact that it is going to have on our fiscal framework, because we are told that the price of fuel will go up, the price of wheat will go up. To what extent are we exposed to Russia and Ukraine in terms of trade? Because we will be presenting this report tomorrow. From our side, the report is being presented tomorrow. Then after a week's time, then things will have changed dramatically, because that conflict which is going there on there, it's going to have very serious ramifications to the economy of the world. So I think a well-researched presentation is needed probably from our side in Parliament. We've got PPO, we've got our research team, and also probably from National Treasury if they have done some homework in this regard. Thanks, Chair.
Any comments here, Willie?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree that we must get feedback in this regard as soon as possible. I also just want us to have our wording right. It says the potential impact of climate change on the economy and the current Ukraine and Russia war. I think that we must be very careful. It's not a Ukrainian war. It's the war of Russia in Ukraine. Ukraine is not at war with Russia. It has been invaded by Russia. So in the current sense, it seems as if Ukraine wants to be at war with Russia, and they don't. I think we should have our wording, the Russia war in Ukraine there. But yeah, I agree that we need to get information on the effects of our economy as soon as possible so that we can prepare for that. Thank you.
Fani?
Thank you, Chair. Also to include there, and I believe that it will form part of the report, is the agricultural sector in South Africa and the strain that will be placed on it as a whole with regards to fertilizers that needs to be imported, as well as the fuel price that might go up with tremendous percentages. That could also be included, please. Thank you.
Noxie?
No, Chair, I beg to differ with the view that says the Russian war in Ukraine. I don't think we should be masters of what is happening between those two countries. The fact, the fact that the war is happening, you know, we would rather talk NATO. I'm not sure, but I think we can't agree to say it's a Russian war on Ukraine, but we could always say Ukraine and Russia, or Russia and Ukraine war. So it is unfortunate that whether Ukraine is the victim and Russia is the bully, but the war is between them at the end of the day. So that's all we can put to try and be as objective as we can. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think why don't we settle with the current Ukraine-Russia war? I mean, when you spoke about the World War, you said the Allied Axis war of both parties, right? You know, we're not the International Affairs Committee here, and we'll have differences of views, and it's not germane. I think the main point we're making is the consequences, as the chair said, and somebody brought in fertilizers now, funny, needless to say, and he's right. So why can't we say something? I think it should be a separate point, 5.46, to say something like, how about, I don't know, but something like, understandably, the fiscal framework does not fully factor in adequately the...
Comrade Yunus, are you done?
Yeah. Sorry?
Oh, okay, you were off, now you're back.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just thinking of a wording, Comrade Chair, based on what you said. I think 5.45, we can just put Ukraine-Russia war, right? Or the war between Ukraine and Russia. Whoever declared it and so on is neither here nor there. We're more concerned about the economic implications of it, as the chair said. But we need another point, 5.46, I'm suggesting, co-chair colleagues, comrades, which is something like, look, obviously when the fiscal framework was shaped, the war hadn't been declared, although you could anticipate that the war clouds were looming, but you weren't sure. So we can say, understandably, the fiscal framework does not adequately factor in the consequences of the Russia or Ukraine-Russia war. We can say sometimes Ukraine-Russia, sometimes Russia-Ukraine war. And the committee expresses its concern about the considerable possibility or the extreme likelihood, find the right words, the team, of significant increases in fuel, fertilizer, and other prices. And our concern about the consequences of this on all the people of South Africa, particularly, as usual, disproportionate to the poor and disadvantaged. I mean, the petrol goes up to 40 rand, as people are saying. Can you imagine the cost of consumer goods, even basic things, you know? So the consequences will be bad for all of us, but obviously those who are unemployed and on social grounds. Something like that. Obviously, I'm not going to say all of that. Is that okay? Fine.
Hello, Chair.
Okay. Chair?
Yes, my friend.
Yes, no, Chair, I fully, good morning, all members. I fully agree with you, Chair. Yes, I fully agree with you, Chairperson, in terms of that we don't define as to that we put it in that context.
Yeah, they can polish it up. That's just a quick thing. Noxie, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Chair. I think what you are raising is the very concern that we are raising in 5.4.5. It's the same thing, but we maybe just need to say 5.4.51, the COVID effects, and 5452, we make a statement about Ukraine and Russia and the financial or economic consequences thereof. Because I think we're making a new point on the very point that we have already raised. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, okay, they can decide on the numbering, but your point is taken. And you're right, it's not just financial, it's economic as well. We're done, I think, unless there's somebody else who wants to. Dennis, yes, please.
Thanks, Chair. It's on a separate point, 5.4.6.
Yeah.
If I may.
Yeah, sure.
It's just, it's no longer on the screen, but it refers to the rebuilding or temporary housing of Parliament. And quite specifically, we need to fund both. So that all needs to change to and. It's a small change, but it's a big difference.
Yeah. You see, we're not clear what temporary housing means. Are we referring, for example, to the use of the ICC or some other facility in Cape Town? Is that what we're talking about?
Indeed, Chair, yeah. So that's going to have a financial implication above what...
That's being discussed. All right, does anybody... I get it, okay, thank you. I just want to understand that because, the meaning could mean something else that, it's going to be done temporarily, but somewhere else Parliament's going to be rebuilt or something. So as long as the wording's clear, I'm not sure, but fine. Okay, are there any other hands up? No. So you're saying change the or to the and. And maybe we should clarify what we mean by temporary housing. Can the committee staff do that, right? Just say the housing, I know you'll find the right wording and the two chairs will look at the draft when you send it to us and we will comment on it. Are we done? Is anybody else got anything else to say? No. Okay, good, we're done. Right, so basically we'll get 3 lines from Mr. Wessels and Mr. Sarupan and others who raised that matter. So we can slide that in there, the DA, something, the way we normally do it. Having said that, right, 551 is straightforward. We've done that before. And here you are, voter, 552, the public procurement bill, which has been in the pipeline since 2018, I think, right? Okay, we're done. Sorry, yes, somebody's got their hand up. Is it? Willie, yes.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I would just like us to add an additional 0.5.3 maybe. One of the things that was discussed in length during our discussions was that there needs to be consequence management. I see nothing in this report of the committee discussing the fact that there must be consequence management for people that does not do their job properly or does not do their spending properly. So I just think that we need to reiterate consequence management. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we've said that before. So unless somebody's changed their mind since then, it's fine. We'll put something in, right? The committee reiterates its previous, its persistent position. Because it's a generic thing. The real issue is to monitor this, right? The Public Service Administration Committee and all of us in our respective portfolios, in our case, National Treasury, we have to ensure it happens. Otherwise, it's a meaningless thing, right? And just say the committee will actively monitor this, right? Having said that, I can't think of anything else, colleagues. Right. So then in that case, we're separating, Comrade Joe. Your committee meets first and adopts the report, and then so do we. I hope we have quorums on our side in Kulileko. I think we do. Thanks. Over to you, Comrade Joe.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think at the end, we should acknowledge the efforts that have been put by the teams to put together this report. We are very hard and harsh on public servants when they don't do good work. But if there is good work that they do, it is important for public representatives to acknowledge that. And it is standard. You know that, Chairperson, I know you are an academic. When you compile a research document, there's a section right at the beginning where you say, I acknowledge the following people who have assisted me to put this study or report together. So it does not have to go into this report, but I think ourselves as chairpersons, we have to do that. Thanks very much, Comrade Eunice, for steering the ship. Let's get into the meeting of the NA Standing Committee. Alan, do we correct?
Yes, Chair, full house today.
Okay. Let's consider the report. Can somebody move for the adoption of the report?
I so move, Chair.
Honorable Abraham moves. Any second?
I second, Chair.
Honorable Mavileta seconds. Any objection? Honorable Shibambu?
No, thanks, Chair. We're voting against the report. We did not do those paragraph to paragraph submissions because our observation historically is that it's a most useless exercise to do, because even on issues that get to be agreed upon, majority of them fall off and they do not get implemented. So it's just a talk shop exercise that happens here, but we are here to record emphatically our objection to the budget, because it's the most right-wing budget and framework that has ever been presented, that supposes that privatization of state-owned companies and services will lead to economic growth, which has never happened anyway in the manner that it is. And also even your conceptualization of the state's procurement capacity to drive economic growth is problematic. Like to say you're going to encourage people, it doesn't happen anyway. There has to be legislation, and it is not just the trade and industry legislation. It has to be the legislations that deal with procurement, the PFMA and the MFMA, because whilst we have got legislation in trade and industry that encourages localization, the accounting officers are not compelled to comply with that, because the auditing process audits in relation to the procurement legislation, not to the aspirations that are otherwise expressed in trade and industry legislations. So we don't agree with the budget, but also the issue which we have raised in the beginning of this process was the issue of establishment of state-owned financial institutions like a state bank and a sovereign wealth fund, that despite the recurrent commitments to do so, such is not there. But also we still have not yet been given a believable and clear legislation or system to deal with particularly tax avoidance by multinational corporations. There's been a lot of illustrations on how these multinational corporations, particularly in the resources sector, have been avoiding taxes by having some special relationships with tax havens in different parts of the world, and thereby avoiding paying taxes here in South Africa. We think that, if anything, the current fiscal framework is just going to deepen the poverty of our people. It actually admits that it won't be able to take people out of poverty. It will not create jobs. The economy is not going to grow. So even the expected marginal growth that is anticipated of 1.8% is going to be dwarfed by the fact that the population in the same period will have risen, and a variety of other challenges will have impounded on South Africa. So we do not agree with the current framework. We reject it with contempt, and it must be stated clearly that the EFF is totally and fundamentally opposed to the fiscal framework of 2022 as presented. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Honorable Shibambu. Akbare Vessels, Sarupen, and then Dutoy.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Chairperson, please note that the FF Plus reserves its position.
Baie dankie. Sarupen, Honourable.
Chair, thank you very much. Please note that the DA reserves its position.
Thanks, Honourable Sarupen. Akbare Dutoy, Vryheid Front.
Thank you, Chair. And the Select Committee, please also note the Freedom Front Plus is that we reserve our position. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Honorable Dutoy. Honorable Dutoy, for now, it is the standing committee that is considering the report. The next meeting will be that of the select committee, so that it should not be like a member of a member of the NCOP has influenced NA committee to take a particular decision. So that's it. The report is adopted by the majority. We are going to note all the objections raised by EFF and DA and the Free Front. Are there announcements, Secretariat?
Yes, Chair. But I think because it relates to tomorrow's meeting, I think if the committees can just stay online for further like a minute or two after the select committee goes through their process for this report.
Alan, let me get it clear. You said we have another item after the select committee.
It's with regards to tomorrow's meeting, Chair. We've received correspondence from the parliamentary team and from the acting secretary, Colin. But because it is a joint meeting, I think, or if it's agreeable with you and Mr. Colin, we can discuss it after they've adopted their report.
Oh, okay. Okay. Over to you, Comrade Eunice, for your committee to consider the report.
Okay, yeah. All right. So we put the report for voting. Is there a mover and seconder?
My Chairperson, can I come in?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, taking in consideration all the processes which were followed after the tabling of the budget, and recommendations from the stakeholders, recommendations from the committee, that then I propose this report to be adopted by the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Willie, don't you want a second? Oh, all right. Sorry, who seconded?
Thank you, Chairperson. I second.
Thank you, comrade. Thank you. Right. So the DA, you want to say anything about your position on the report?
Chairperson, the Democratic Alliance will reserve our position on this report. Thank you.
Don't look so sad. Okay, next.
Thank you, Chair. The Freedom Front Plus reserve our position on this report.
Comrade Moletsane, are you here?
I'm here, Chairperson. EFF reject the report.
Okay, right. Thank you. Is there anything else? Can we close on our side? Thanks, Comrade Chair. We're done. The changes will be sent to you and me by 2 o'clock, and then we'll just have a quick look. Usually it's 5 minutes job, and then we can put it in ATC. Thank you. The debate on our side also is tomorrow, and we meet at appropriations tomorrow morning at 9. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair. Co-chairs.
Thank you, Chair.
Amanda.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Members of the standing committee, the Secretariat have indicated that there is a matter that they want to update us about before we close the meeting. Alan, can you bring the matter to the fore so that we can look at it and take it forward?
Yes, Chairperson, thank you. It's for the Select Committee on Finance as well, because tomorrow's meeting is a joint meeting. We've received correspondence from addressed to yourself and Mr. Karim from the Acting Secretary to Parliament. They'd like to postpone tomorrow, or request from the committees to postpone tomorrow's meeting on the FMPPLA regulations, because in a nutshell, basically the Speaker of the National Assembly has not been briefed on the regulations. So they'd like to brief the Speaker first before they then come to the committees. That's basically in a nutshell what they are requesting. Also, it says here, whilst there seemed to have been an urgency for the committees to process the regulations to be concluded by 31 March 2022, it is important to note that this regulation does not deal with a fire incident that occurred in January 22, but is an improvement based on the experience of Parliament and provincial legislatures during the COVID-19 pandemic. There is thus no immediate need for the committees to fast-track this process, as other avenues are being explored to address the potential risk the fire incident has on the annual financial statement.
Okay, that's it. Members, any comment? Honorable Ryder. Honorable Ryder, I see you are raising your hand.
Yes, sorry, Chair, I was still muted. I beg your pardon. Chair, unfortunately, it wasn't made clear, and it looks like most of the members of the Select Committee have already dropped off, including the Chair. However, I would like to perhaps make the comment that I think that this letter is actually welcomed, because clearly what's happened is that somebody higher up in the food chain has got wind of what the CFO or the acting CFO was trying to do, and has put the brakes on it and said, no, we must follow due process. And it just goes to reaffirm our comments at the last meeting, when it seemed as if this committee was summoned, or our committees jointly were summoned to a meeting by the acting CFO, which I object to in the strongest terms. So I think this letter is actually welcomed, and I'm quite happy that we should postpone this meeting until they get themselves sorted out. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Ryder. Honorable Abra.
Yes, Chair. I think I want to agree with Honorable Ryder, because in the last meeting, the officials from Parliament were at pains, in explaining to us what the agency was, to a point that even though we said we would further consult with the executive authority, I remember we mandated both chairs to speak to the executive authority, and the information that we got was that the discussion that was held within Parliament was with the previous speaker. So I think it's only fair that they have not as yet briefed the current speaker, and we're happy to also understand that the matter is no longer as urgent as it was put in the past, so that we all move with the same pace. The postponement for me is also welcome. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Abraham. We agree that the matter be postponed. It's procedural that if you deal with issues of legislations and regulations which accompany a legislation or any policy matter, in terms of processing, such issues should pass the desk of an executive authority. In the case of cabinet, there's no law that comes to Parliament without passing through the minister. It's the minister that tables the bill, but of course we have got private members' bill. And in the case of Parliament, the Speaker and the National and the NCOP chairpersons are the executive authority through whom certain processes have to go through. So in this regard, if the administration haven't taken the matter through the executive, it was inappropriate, and they should not do that in the future. Thanks very much. Unless there is any other announcement, Alan Tebucho, before we close.
No, Chairperson, that's it. Thank you.
So tomorrow's meeting is postponed until further notice. Thanks very much, honorable members. The meeting is adjourned.
Recording stopped.